Alright, so we have our reverse foot set up now. Now let's set up a quick, easy IK chain real quick and just see what that looks like. So just as a reminder, we'll put down our IK chains node to start. We need our IK drivers and we need a required skeleton. So our skeleton is quite easy to grab right off the bat. We just need to grab our skeleton at a point that we want it, at a point that where we want to edit it, right? I'm going to just grab it right after our main and reverse foot setup here, since when we have, once we change our foot location here, we're changing where that ankle is as well. So I'll just grab that as our required skeleton. And I'll also split off at this point new joints that we're going to use as controls. So we'll take our delete joints node here and we'll get our IK controls. And for this, we'll just want our knees, our ankles, and our hips. And we'll want to delete non-selected. Oops. Perfect. Now, just like how we set up an IK chain in the first week, we want to set up a very similar IK chain now. So we're going to first put this into a parent node where we can unparent everything. If you get an error like this where it says one or more parenting actions has failed, it's because we just selected all of our joints, and we'll notice that one of our joints, our hips, don't actually have any parent to unparent. So that we'll get an error spit out from there. We can fix it just by selecting our lower limbs. And now if we put down a rig pose, we should see that all of our joints should be their own chains here. And it's just because I have something templated or some sort of visual bug is happening right now where we're seeing the primitives still for some reason. Regardless, there we go. The visual bug has resolved itself. So we have our joints unparented now, and we can position them the way we need to and manipulate them how we need to solve for the IK chains. So we're just going to call this unparent legs or something like that. Then I'm going to put down a rig pose here to offset our knees. And I'm just going to grab our knees here and just pull them forward a bit. Perfect. Now we can put an actual rig pose down here for our, we'll call them IK controls. Perfect. And we're going to want to put controls at the end of maybe all of our rig poses that we actually want to do controls with or promote later on as our controls. So now we have our control chain that's able to be manipulated. Now if we move our ankles here, we actually haven't set up any of our IK chains here yet, so let's do that. We're going to need two for the left and the right side. So we'll take our root as our hip, our middle is our knee, our tip is our ankle, and we can match by name for our twist and goal because that's what we're doing. We're just extracting our exact joints here that we just inputted and putting them into our controls so we can match by name. And we can see as soon as we do that, we get a little bit of a twist in our joints. You can see that the foot is twisted and our knee is twisted as well. To fix our foot, we're going to just want to click Orient Tip. And as we can see, when we match by name now, our tip and our foot remains positioned the same way that we want it to be, but our knee twists a little, and that's just because of our offset here. If we wanted to not twist as much, we can adjust how these offsets are made. And we'll notice if we clear this that when we enable our match, it doesn't do anything because our joints are in the exact positions that they are given. We want to still offset our knees so that there is a kind of a direction that our knees are pointing. Because if we were to bend our IKs right now and our knee positions were to stay where they are, essentially these pole vectors were to stay where they are, when we bend our knee, it'll do its best to point the knee towards our pole vector knee, our offset knees here, our control knees. So if we keep them where they were and we were to bend it, we probably get our knee bending backwards and getting an elbow that looks like that. So that's why we want our offset node there. So we have our left chain set up. So now if we if we move our right heel here, we can see that that IK works. And if we clear this this pole vector, we can see a little bit of what I mean just by moving our ankle forward. That twist of our leg, we don't really want that. So with our offset put in by default, we can ensure that just without the animator or ourselves moving the knees by hand, we can ensure that for most poses the knee will continue to point forward. Perfect. So let's set up our right leg now. We're just going to take our hip, our knee, and our ankle, match by name, and orient tip. Perfect. Now we have our IK controls set up. But once again, we'll notice that our previous controls have been overwritten by these new controls that we set up. If we move our foot here, we could see we get some pretty weird stuff going on. And it's because of the way we've organized our hierarchy here, the way that we're operating right now. So right now we're posing our foot, right? Our ankle becomes over here. It's over there now. And when we extract it, we get this information. Then we unparent it and we set up our IKs from here. And this is our rest pose for our IK right here. This is the rest pose. We don't want this as our rest pose for our IK. We want the leg just straight up and down as our rest pose. So instead of grabbing our IK controls from this blend right here, I'm going to actually just grab them from before our reverse foot node is implemented as such. And how can we get our reverse foot node to work again, our reverse foot setup, and our controls in general to work again? Well, we just have to be smart about where we blend in our control system here. So instead of blending it in during or right before our setup of our IK, we can use it as a blend for our IK controls over here, since that's what we want to control them with. So first, since we've deleted all of our feet joints from here, except for our ankle, we want to make sure we blend in the ankle from our reverse foot node. We want to make sure we grab this ankle as our ankle point from over here. So we'll do so right after our offset of our knee. We'll grab a skeleton blend and we'll blend in our reverse ankles. There we go. And now if we look at our foot IK solve, we get the result that we're looking for. But we still don't quite get our reverse foot node working again yet. If we check out our foot here, we can adjust around the ball, and this is what we want our joint chain to look like. But when we come down here, when we look at our IK chain, we can see that the toe has just rotated as if the whole ankle has rotated the foot. So it's not accommodating for our reverse foot setup. So once that's happened, we just need to blend in our feet after our solve here. So we can just put down another skeleton blend. We can grab our new main chain. This has become our kind of new main chain here, the IK solve. And this is all of our control chains over here. We can notice once again that our IK chains has that blend, so we're blending towards our controls, but we're producing a main chain. We want to blend in our toes, so blend reverse foot toes there. And I think I called it reverse ankles here, so I'll just call it reverse toes. And we'll want to make sure we're just grabbing our toes like such. Let's see, we're getting an error. No object with attribute draw. Not sure why we got this error, and we continue to do so. Because our selection went through. There just happens to be some finicky stuff sometimes. Our selection went through. We can see that the blend worked. So I'm not sure what the error was for, but everything seems to be working fine. In case you encounter errors or even potentially Houdini crashes, just make sure you save. Perfect. So now that we have our toes blending in, our ankle is controlled by where we position our foot, and our IK is even working with that, we've now built a complete IK leg system how we need to by hand. So I'm going to just color these nodes really quick so that we can keep them all organized. These are our reverse foot nodes. These are our IKs. I'll just make the IKs a deeper blue than our reverse foot node. So we can start to see a kind of more advanced system that we started learning week 1, where we extract the joints that we need as our controls. We set up whatever control system it may be, whether it be a different joint hierarchy system like our reverse foot, where we make our heel the new parent. And then when we built our controls the way we need to and have them deforming the way we want or moving the way we want, we then just push it back into our main chain using a skeleton blend. And in fact, now that we have our reverse foot node and our main controls controlling everything about our IKs, we don't need this control rig pose anymore, since that would just overwrite our control over the ankle. You might want it for controlling the knees, so that our knee offset is adding some values to our transform data, as we can see here. If you wanted a fresh 0, 0 position for these knees, so that if an animator were to zero out the controls, maybe that's what you want this rig pose for. And in fact, that's what I'm going to use it for. I'll call it the knee poles controls. And I'll only use it for positioning these knees in the future, since we can work off of a 0, 0 space. Perfect. Now that we've set up our IK legs by hand here, let's explore another way we can set up our reverse foot, which is using this reverse foot node. If we look at this reverse foot node, we can see that we get some added benefits than setting things up by hand. First, we can see that when we look at our different tabs here in our node, we have a roll parameter set up for us with some limits and toe angles. We also have the ability to rotate everything we want to by sliders here. So if we wanted to just lift our heel, we could do so with all these sliders, and we don't need to, and we ourselves don't need to, and our animators don't need to select individual controls by hand and pose things that way. So let's explore how this reverse foot works. The first important thing to note is that our first parameter here is our mode that we are doing things by. We can create markers and solve the reverse foot node. We can create markers and we can solve our reverse foot node. Creating markers and solving our reverse foot node is useful in later stages or in fixing animations and retargets. So we can create our reverse foot system and we can solve for it at the same time, which is useful when we want to do everything all at once. But we don't quite want to do that. Our reverse foot system also requires more data, more joints than we needed for our manual system. All we needed for our manual system were our feet. This reverse foot system wants upper leg, knee joints, ankles, the works. And the reason for that is that it kind of has a bit of knowledge of IKs in it as well. So when we separate out our joints that we need for this, we want to make sure we grab all our needed points that we want to input into our reverse foot node. So we'll delete joints and we'll grab our whole legs this time. Just our main points. I'm going to avoid bringing over the twist joints just because that's a lot of stuff we don't need to work with. So we'll grab our whole legs just like that. I think I grabbed the root, so I'm going to unselect that. Perfect. Now when we put this into our reverse foot node here, which we can call this just setup for now, we can see that we get a bunch of red dots here that all have their own name to them. And what this reverse foot node is doing is it's creating new points for us, new joints for rotation points. Just like how we created our heel, this node is creating many points of rotation as well. And it can kind of auto place these joints as best as it can based on the joint data we give it. So for its upper leg, we'll try the left hip here. Our knee will be our left knee, and our ankle, our left ankle. And we can see once we put in these 3 points, it has this giant control handle that it just uses a simple box for. We can adjust that in our offset markers. Just point that at 0.01 is what I'm going to do for now, or maybe just 0.1. 0.05 maybe. There we go. That's a reasonable size. We can see it put the left marker, underscore, underscore, marker, underscore, left ankle, underscore, inner foot at our ankle here. If we continue to set up these points and give it more information, the left ball and the left toe, we could see it does its best to place these markers according to our foot data that we give it. Our reverse foot node is also smart in the way that we can provide it rest geometry and capture skeleton to try and place these markers for us. So let's try that for now. So our rest geometry is actually the geometry of our rigged mesh. And our capture skeleton is our rest pose skeleton. Even though over here we have rest point transforms and deform transforms, and this is called geometry to deform, we have a different naming scheme for the reverse foot. As we saw when we put that in, our points moved a little bit, and it's trying its best to take this data we can see here and position the markers based on that geometry and where the skeleton is and the bind information we gave it. It's not doing a great job, so let's position these joints by hand. We can do so simply by using the heel offset markers and all these offset positions. If we just do an offset up and down, which I may have overwrote this these markers by giving it that mesh data. So we can't position by hand anymore. So we'll just add a new reverse foot node and delete our old one real quick. And input our nodes again, our joints again. There we go. We have these giant boxes again. Change the size. Perfect. And now if we start to adjust these markers, like our outer foot marker. So issue that I'm actually running into is I'm trying to create and solve right now, which isn't going my way. I'm just going to try and just create markers and see if that will allow us to adjust our positions. Okay, when I was initially setting up our reverse foot node here, I neglected to add one of our joints that it needs for data input, which is this pelvis joint. I went back and I added it in on our delete joints node. I added our pelvis joint in, and we don't actually need to reference it up here in the pelvis joint if we don't want to. But having our pelvis completes our needed inputs, and we can see that our feet markers are put on the ground plane directly under our joints here. And now that we have that finished set of data that we needed to input into this node, we can adjust where these markers are by offsetting. Not that we need to offset anything up or down, but we do maybe need a little bit of X and Y, or sorry, X and Z. So for instance, the outer foot marker, we could adjust to be matching the outside of our foot a bit better. Our inner foot marker, we can adjust to match the inside of our mesh a bit better. And our heel can be pushed back a bit to match more or less where our own heel joint was placed. Perfect. Now if we put down a rig pose here, we can see that we can adjust all of these joints just like any of our other joints in Houdini. And we can see that similar to our system we set up, it is a reverse foot system with the toes acting as the secondary parent. Our heel is first parent, toes is second parent, and then the ball is the final parent, along with these rotation points that are mainly kind of reference points for rolling our foot. Now if we put this data, which we've just put down as create markers, we can now start to adjust the well, we have to, actually, my bad, we have to put down another reverse foot node here, which we can set to be our solve. If we had this to be our create and solve, we could start to go in and manipulate our joints right away. As we can see here, we can roll with the roll parameter. So we no longer have to position our heel by hand and then start to position the roll of the ball of our foot with our manual setup, and then the toe as well. And if we don't like the angle at which our blend starts from rolling off of the toe to, or sorry, the ball of our foot to our toe, we can adjust so with these limiters here. But we get a nice roll to this already just out of the box. We can also, do other sliders here, like our heel lift if we just wanted to control that, or the ball lift. So that's the advantage of this reverse foot node setup instead of setting up our reverse foot by hand. The reason I'm going to position, the reason I'm going to use the first node as a create markers only and our second node as a solve markers only is so that we can edit some points in between the creation of our reverse foot node and the solving of our reverse foot node. We also want to make sure we come in and we do the same thing for our right leg. So we want to make sure we put in our right hip, our right knee, our right ankle, the ball joint, and our toe joint. And then we'll want to offset these points the same way we did with our left side. Perfect. So our reverse foot creation has been made. So we'll call that create points. Call this one solve reverse foot. Cool. Now what do we want to edit in between our points, and why do we want to be able to grab our points in between our solution and our creation? Well, the reason we want to do so is because if we put down a rig pose right now, the control of our foot has now been given to this reverse foot node of our creation here from our reverse foot node. We can notice when we position the red new marker here, the marker ankle, that's how we position our foot now. And we haven't set up our system to control our positions from there. So we want to be able to give control back to our own heel control. And the way we're going to do that is by hooking up our heel to control where this marker is. So first things first, since we position our heel over here and we blend it into our main chain right there, we want to make sure we're grabbing our heel from this point. We'll grab a skeleton blend to make sure we're bringing in our heel. We don't need this rig pose right now, but we can also see what I was saying with our roll really quick. How it has, we need to set up our kind of IKs here since it breaks some stuff. So we have to fix that part of things, which is why we're separating our markers and our creators. And our first step is this heel to control. So we'll take our main chain and we'll pump it into this chain, which actually, when you're thinking about using our skeleton blends, our left input here is going to be the chain that we are trying to get to blend. So it's our point A. Our blend position, the point we're trying to blend to, is going to be our second input. So we actually want this to be our left input, and the position we're trying to blend to is our right input. We want to make sure we're grabbing our heels. So we'll grab our heels here. Just our heels. And we get that weird none type attribute again. But our selection went through, and we can see if we blend, we can look at this skeleton blend, and when we pose with our heels, it should go through to our skeleton blend. Perfect. Let's undo that really quick. Now to control that point, to control our marker from our heel, we have several ways we can do so. We can use an attribute VOP to create a parent constraint, or I'm just going to put down a parent node here. Parent joints. And I'm simply going to parent our marker under our heel, just like that. Now hopefully, if we view our parent here, and I'm actually mistaken, we'll see here in a second. If I pose our skeleton right now, our parent system is still in place, but we're not moving our heel with it yet. That's because I built the parent after our blend in. I'm going to do so before our blend in. Now if we check out our blend, when I pose this, we should take our whole system with us. Perfect. So we are going to parent markers to heel. Awesome. The other thing we might want to do is possibly create our offsets up here in our foot, but we'll see how things work for now. So our reverse foot system now follows our heels again, just like how we had to solve for up here, but we did so with our reverse foot node system over here. So I'm just going to color this a yellow for now. So we know this is our reverse foot stuff, this is our manual stuff. So instead of using our manual reverse foot system, let's try and use our regular reverse foot system, or sorry, our reverse foot node system over here. So instead of our manual system, we'll plug in our reverse foot system into both locations that our manual system is plugged in, and we'll see how things go just off the bat. as such. So we'll put our viewpoint on our reverse toes node. And we'll start to pose with our reverse foot. So we get a rotation in our pole vector here. We can see that our knee doesn't move. Our offset didn't work right now, and it's because our reverse foot system has its own knee in it. You can see it's right there, and since we're blending everything right here, we're even blending our knee offset that we had before. But we just want to be blending our ankles, and we actually don't even need to blend toes, since I mean we shouldn't have to anyways, but for now let's just fix this ankles to be only blending our ankles instead of all of our joints. And down here we'll want to only blend our toes, which we should be already, and we can see that that weird reverse bend in our leg has been fixed since we stopped blending our and undoing our offset in our pole vectors there. And we can see now that our reverse foot system that we just set up, our new one, is completely in place. If we want to make sure we don't blend any of our joints that we don't want, if we only want our feet joints, we can of course put down a delete joints node here after our reverse foot node. And we can make sure we delete all unnecessaries. So all of our unneeded joints would be all of our reverse foot joints that we made, all these markers. Not our heel, just these markers. Selecting things in the rigged pose, in the rig tree rather, can sometimes get strange. As we can see here, I'm trying to just select things, and we're getting some odd unselections every now and then. And I'm just doing a control select for all of the things, for all of our elements in here. And we can see we still get some weirdness now and then. So we want to make sure we delete all of our markers, and we don't even need our pelvis or our knees, any of that stuff. We just want our ankle and our toe joints. So we can delete all of that, and then we don't have to worry about it blending in at any point. We can delete our names down here, for instance, and it should still work fine because we don't have the option of blending our knee anymore. Perfect. So those are our options. That's been setting up some IKs in our legs and setting up a different path for our reverse foot node.